Because right now, before we get too deep into Hug Nation, let's take a moment to get present. Sink into this now moment, fall into our bodies, let the thoughts, the stories, the roles, the identities, the to-do lists, whatever brought you here, let it just evaporate away, and what is left is this solid now. The experiences of this now. If we can, try to get them just the experience, not any story with it, no label. As you hear the sound of my voice, just hear the melody of the pitch. Try not to assign too much about who's saying it. As you hear a car go by, try not even to think of a car. Try to just to hear the vrrr. It's a really good practice for meditation. Don't get so concerned with clearing your mind and being empty and being frustrated as you have thoughts. Instead, practice just being present and just being aware of whatever stimulus is being received, the sensations in your body as wind touches you, as your clothes touch you, as you hear things. That practice of becoming aware and being present will infinitely expand your life, because so much of life happens while we're not paying attention to it. All of life happens in the now, and so much of our life happens in stories, in what-ifs, in plans. So we practice coming back to the now, practice coming to this place of abundance where all our needs are met, where nothing is lacking, where we simply are, and we receive, and we allow. And from that place, the song in our heart can be heard, and with practice, we can start to follow it. We can start to feel that vibration that comes through us, not from any plan, not from any mind place of to-do or construction or acquisition, but just from this gentle, perfect vibration that flows through everything, that makes embryos grow into babies, that makes seasons pass, that makes tides flow, that makes our breath go in and out. Thank you, universe, for all of our blessings. Help us to appreciate them. Help us to become joyous in our loving awareness of the gift of our lives and awareness. And help us spread that joy in the world. Amen. Welcome. It is May 15th, 2012. Woo! May is my birthday month. So it's a wonderful time for me to start thinking. It's kind of as a runner, as I'm approaching the lap marker. So as I get to the lap marker, which is all the birthday is, it's not like anything happens in the universe, but it's a lap marker where we can say, what's our time been? What's our blood pressure? Who's around us in the race? How's our equipment, our shoes? What are our treads like? See, this is what happens when I start with sports metaphors. I start on it, and then I realize I have no idea what I'm talking about. What would a runner actually be thinking about as they're approaching the lap marker? Oh, is my toothpaste ready? Is the Gatorade fresh? I don't know. Anyway, so it's an interesting time for me to be thinking about what's going on, because I just had a kind of big snap of my status quo, and it was a health snap. I go through fluctuations of sore backs or things like that, but yesterday I had a pretty significant experience with vertigo. 3 times yesterday I was thrown into a sensation of movement that was intense. Now, the irony is that it was really close to a sensation that I would probably take a lot of drugs to achieve, but it was a little too strong. It was kind of like the IV version of something that I might have taken orally. Too much? Anyway, this vertigo feeling, at first I'm like, I feel dizzy, but it's not dizzy. I feel like I'm like, this gravity is moving in a different direction, and I'm being like thrown or twisted in this really heavy gravity pulling me in a weird way. For a few seconds it was a kick, and then it started to get a little scary, and then it started to get slightly like, oh, am I going to get sick off this? I didn't actually get nausea, but it was debilitating. And each time it seemed like it was related to some movement and moving of my head, and everything I've seen about online is that that's a good sign. I just need to kind of do things to settle the crystals in my head, which, as I say that out loud, that sounds about as new agey as possible. Oh, no, man, no, don't see a doctor. You just need to, realign your head crystals, man. So that's my plan for the afternoon. I did try to do it once, these head movements that you're supposed to do. They actually even sell a hat. Thank you, Jacob, who shared some techniques that worked for him, and then also showed that there's actually a hat that you can buy with this contraption on it with these colored things, and it directs you. Okay, now turn your head until the colored liquid in this little contraption is aligned with you. So it kind of like, so you know exactly how to put your head. Of course, that was $100, and I'd rather die than spend $100 on. Wait, maybe that's poor phrasing. Okay, so I did the worst thing possible, which is I looked this up on the internet. Anyone ever done that before? Had a symptom and then look it up on the internet? And then realize that all paths lead to death? Yeah. So, of course, then the next thing you do is you go, this could be a symptom of this. And it has this, it lists some other symptoms. And I was like, oh my gosh, in yoga class last week, my left side did feel numb. I mean, it would raise over my head for a long period of time, and I was doing this kind of gnarly, extension stretch. But still, maybe I had a stroke, which I guess is still possible. All right, so enough of this vertigo talk. I only bring it up partially because it's heavy on my mind, and that has like 3 levels of meaning. But also because I think going into today, I am in a swirly mindset, and I'm just going to talk about the random things that have been plopping into my life over the last week. And so if you're in the live chat and you have a question or something that you would like to get answered, this would be a great week for it, because I'm just kind of going off some questions that have been proposed to me this week. I want to apologize for the blurriness of the camera. We are trying the Google Hangout this week for the first time. Hopefully we'll work out the bugs. Hopefully this isn't just the way it is, because it's a little, it's not really ideal right now. Is it working still? Okay. All right. So one of the topics I want to talk about today is your business. And by that I mean staying in your business. And what is your business? Byron Katie says that everything is either your business, someone else's business, or God's business. And you need to really think about which one it is before you try to help, try to give advice, try to affect that. And that also is a good way to look at it as you look about, in a certain situation, there could be elements that are your business, there are elements that are their business, and there are elements that are God's business. And it goes back to that just genius little bitty prayer, the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Such a little thing, and that can guide us so much in life. And so that's come up a bunch of times this week as people have asked me for advice, or I've seen people get into situations. Somebody was asking me about, they observed somebody acting in a way that they had a lot of problems with, and it was causing them a lot of anxiety and frustration as they were seeing this person who was actually considered to be model or a teacher in the community they're in, and they were disappointed with how they were handling a bunch of situations. And so they wanted some feedback or some guide about how to address that, how to help them, or how to reframe it so they can be better. And I totally get the instinct, and I totally get the frustration of like, oh, this person is so popular, people look to them for advice, and look at the kind of role model they are. But the challenge is, in that whole equation, everything that you have a problem with is none of your business. When you are attaching your happiness or your peace to what somebody else is doing, that is just like, you're just signing up for frustration. And I say that in reference to this situation of somebody that you know that you wish would be doing things differently, but that is the case in every relationship in your life, whether it is your boss, whether it is your lover, whether it is your friend, your family. Anytime you slip into that framework of, oh man, if they would just do this differently, I would be so happy, or I would finally be at peace, or I could finally stop doing this, or I could finally, And it seems like, sometimes it seems like the smallest thing. Like, look, if you would just pick up your clothes and not leave them around the house. If you would just say thank you more. If you would just do this little thing for me. But even a request that, yes, admittedly, is understandable. And sometimes we'll go to our friends and be like, you know what, am I asking too much? Is that a reasonable thing to ask? It doesn't matter. You're still asking of the other person, and so your joy is then dependent on them doing that thing. I'm not saying that you should not communicate your needs and not stand up for your boundaries. I'm saying that's all you can do. So, let me say it again. I'm not saying not to stand up for your needs and not to communicate and not to say your boundaries. I'm saying that's all you can do. And then your action choice is simply, is this relationship one that I want to continue to give energy to or not? It's very simple. There's wonderful dialogue that I see Byron Katie go through with people who are, enraged with like a lover who's cheated on them. And she does this amazing process of asking people, well, you're angry about this situation, and yet that is the way it is. You're angry that this man cheated on you. You wish he wasn't a cheater, but that's what he is. How do you know that? Because he cheated. So your choice then is to go, is this something that I can live with? Perhaps he feels terrible and he says he'll never do it again, but you know what he is now. You know how he feels. Is this something that you are willing to put energy in and work with, or not? If your scenario is, well, if he learns and does this, like, oh, you are now in the trap. You cannot change another person. You cannot demand another person. You can simply say, this is what I expect. And then if you don't do that, it is with total love that I say, I am no longer able to have you as my partner, or my friend, or my boss, or my employee, or whatever those things are. Campmate. And I think that's the hard thing, is that when we have these there's times when our relationships need to shift or end, it's hard not to get angry. But I would argue that if you really love that person, if you practice loving that person, you can certainly minimize that anger. Sure, you're going to have sadness, and you're going to have the pain of loss, and you're going to, go through grief of the changing of your relationship. But I think the anger comes from that place of, I needed you to be this. I expected you to be this. You let me down. You're an asshole. And and I'll reiterate that doesn't mean that you let anybody do whatever they want and you just become a doormat. it means that you start to recognize that people will do whatever they want. And if you can communicate with them openly and say, look, this is something that's very important to me. You can say to your partner, you know what, I get these feelings when you go out at night with your friends and I get worried. I feel anxiety knowing you're out with people and you're drinking and you're meeting crazy people. It would mean a lot to me. I would feel a lot better if you would call me at the end of the night to reassure me that you're safe and no one got a drunk driving accident and you're not hooking up with somebody else, if that is your arrangement, or get permission to hook up with someone if that is your arrangement, or whatever the situation is. But saying, this is what I need in this situation. And then that person then can say, okay, I love you. I would like to give you those things. And then if they don't, then you need to decide, okay, these were things that I communicated. These are things that they were unable to give me. How big a deal is it to me? I can't hate them for not doing it. I can love them and be pleased with and feel like I got a gift if they did. See the difference there? Too often we have these expectations, and then all we do is keep score of when they miss it. Instead, if you can go, look, they're going to do whatever they do. If they do nice things for me, if they make any effort because of me, that's a gift. Then you get to feel, thank you. They get to feel like they did something nice, as opposed to getting that scorekeeping in place where you feel like they owe you for whatever. Then no one ever wins. No one feels good about it. There's no incentive. We are very much, animals that are driven by our motivations. And not disappointing someone is a weak motivator. But bringing joy to someone that you love, that's a massive motivator. So this can be a hard thing to do when you're setting these boundaries, because what it means is that sometimes you have to enforce them. Sometimes you have to tell a person, a friend, a lover, that this isn't working for you. And if you notice, as I'm trying to give examples, I'm trying to always say my feelings. I am this. I feel this way. I need this. Because it's too easy to slip into that. Look, when you do this, you do this, and then everyone, if you would just, it's like, whoa. The only way you can say you is go, when you do this thing, it makes me feel like you don't care. When you do this, it makes me feel like, whoa. But if you're ever talking about anything except for yourself, you're trying to control the world. What are the things, that's the wisdom to know the difference. The things that you can change, your business, is the decisions, the boundaries, the energy, the efforts, the trust that you put out there, that you offer. And some of that, a huge part of that, is just in communicating and being honest with your communication. This is something that I've been working on a lot lately and struggling with, and realizing that there are a lot of times when I am communicating and I am crafting my words in a way to try to control the way someone else feels. So I'm not actually speaking my truth, what my needs are. I'm instead saying, oh, how can I get what I want without making them upset? Which is it sounds like a nice thing to do, but it is disrespecting their ability to hear my truth and then have their own reaction. Even if they do have a frustration or a tension that comes from my request or my communication, I need to believe and have faith that they will be able to have that frustration and then start to understand it. Start to go, okay, yes, that stirs me up, but I see why at some point that is causing them that feeling. On some hand, this is advanced communication style, but it's such a good thing to practice. Understand that there are things that are going to cause tension, and that love is having the patience to get through that. The other person in any relationship, and this is a huge game changer when you realize this, that every person in your life is the protagonist of their own story. You have a story in your head, and in your script, people help you out, People do all sorts of things for you. And because we're socialized, everyone who plays their role, sometimes they go off script. As Jacob likes to say, look, play your role, no improvising. But nobody, unless they fall into some sticky issues and codependency stuff, nobody is out there to play the role of supporting cast of your script and do what you want them to do. That is... Oh. Uh-oh. It says I'm live. I feel live. Well, so in essence what I was saying was, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Remembering what is my business, what is your business, what is God's business. Anytime you slip up in any of those awarenesses, you are just writing yourself a prescription for suffering. Because suffering is wishing things were different. And if you are trying to if you fall into the trap or the cultural pattern of thinking that other people's changes, other people's actions, other people's behavior, or shaping it up, or anything is what is going to make you happy, then you're doomed. I mean, not doomed, but it's just so fragile, It's like, we know that, if you get a puppy, it's like having a puppy and saying, I'm only going to be happy if this puppy pees outside. And then 20 minutes later, you peed! And then you what do? You have a choice. You deal with it and then move on. Now, later that day, the dog is going to do it again. And you're going to be, if you don't switch the way you think about it, you're going to be upset again. And I guess what I'm saying is, we're all dogs. But it's true. And if you think about the people you meet as making their struggles or whatever they're going through as simply puppies doing the best they can, it can be a lot easier to forgive them. If you tell your story and it feels like, or it sounds like, listen to yourself, that you're a victim to someone else's acts, someone else's decisions, choices, lack of doing what you think they should, then it's time to retell that story. It's time to decide what role you want that person to play in your story and how you want to react to it. Is your life terrible because you've got this oppressive puppy peeing all over your house? No, you're in control of that story. You're in control of that situation. You're in control of that puppy. You can have an adorable little pee bucket that spills all over your house and you just laugh about how silly it is and, oh my gosh, by the time this little thing is raised, I hope someday it's potty trained, but whatever. Or you can live in this state of fighting reality all the time. I will default, since I'm kind of struggling to get back on track. Byron Katie, thework.com, is the divinely gifted master at this process. She calls it the work, which is questioning your suffering thoughts, or the thoughts that cause you suffering. And many times those are based on the way you think someone else should be acting. So I'll stop that frame of mind with this, and say that what we should do, what we should do, what you should do, what would make me happy is if you would do this, is have a hug. So wherever you are, if you choose to, based on your boundaries and your ability to openly communicate what your needs are, but if you choose, grab yourself by the shoulders. And just take one breath of gratitude for this body of yours. And I will take a special moment of gratitude because as a tiny thing goes wrong and the world starts spinning, it is just a reminder of how many things are going right. The teeny tiniest thing, some crystal I never knew existed, is loose in my ear, and so suddenly the entire universe is flailing sideways as far as I can perceive it. Which means that every other time, every other moment of my increasingly long life is a miracle of balance, a miracle of harmony, a miracle of matter and chemicals and gases and things that scientists will have to explain to me if I ever slow down, in such perfect balance that I can simply put food in, drink water, share love, and that's it. I just keep going. Thank you for this body and all it does without any effort from me, my conscious mind. But as we are saying gratitude, we are also thankful for all parts of ourselves, including the crazy personalities, the issues that we try on, and the roles that we play. That's part of the fun of it. But we also remember that as we interact with other people, they are playing their roles too. And their roles are their priority, just as your roles are yours. And they may misunderstand their role. They may be miscast. They may have been given a wrong script or had a wrong script fed to them over years and years, and we need to forgive them and know that beneath that, they are not that script. They are a perfect divine seed of the divine, just as we are. A ray of light, a flame off the one single fire. And when we can forgive ourselves for getting caught up in our story, we can forgive others. We can recognize that all we can do is do what we do. All others do is do what they do. And we simply need to observe, communicate, and take care of ourselves. We are not victims. We are infinitely powerful. We are conscious. We are witness to the unfolding of the universe. We are God's eyes, ears, nervous system. We are so overwhelmed with gifts. The thought of being a victim is the worst kind of prison, and it happens inside your own mind. So in this moment, let us remember our freedom. Let us remember our unity and our connection to all people, regardless of what their actions do. Know that we are all one thing. We are all part of this amazing universe. We are all connected. Let's take a deep breath and just feel connected to everybody. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Breathe in the love of the universe. Share it with the world. Breathe in the love. Share it with the world. Breathe in the love. Share it with the world. On behalf of Grandpa Caleb and all the love warriors, thank you. Happy Hug Nation. I love you. You are a gift. Your cell of this divine entity is different than every other cell. No better, no worse. And the best thing we can do is strip away all the things that are not us. Remove the entanglements of what we think others should be doing. Figure out who we are. And then be that. Figure out who we are, by the way, is not a process of learning the plan. It's a process of unlearning the roles. Entangling ourselves with what we think we should be, what we need to be. Starting to question, wait a minute, do I really think that it's not cool to wear pink? Why on earth would I think that? Oh, because I've been around people that have had that impression. Okay, well, if that's the case, then Let me sit with that. Do I have a problem with it? No. Not at all. Or that person has an effeminate talk. The way they speak is... I'm going to hurl a... Wait a minute. Why do I think that's a problem? Why is not that the beautiful miracle part of that cell? It'd be like, a skin cell mocking a hair cell that's mocking the liver cell, not understanding that it is the differences of all the cells together that makes the tapestry, that makes the stew, that makes it perfect. And they're all part of the same thing. We're all one. And so, to go back to what we were talking about, if you wish that that bone marrow cell was acting more like the rib cell that you've always had in your mind, well, you're going to be upset with them. But if you just go, oh, look at this. I'm in a relationship with a bone marrow cell. What do they do? And you could say, bone marrow cell, you know what? It's awesome. It would be, let me work on my phrasing. I feel somewhat neglected when you make marrow 24/7. It would make me really happy if we could set aside a few minutes a day to, share a meal and turn off our computers. And the bone marrow would say, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Computers, I live inside a bone, and I produce, white blood cells so that this organism... Actually, I don't even understand why I'm doing it. That's not really my job. That's God's job. My job is to produce white blood cells. So, you're kind of freaking me out, the fact that we're cells talking to each other, but let's just set that aside and say, I'm an individual. I make white blood cells. So don't try to shape me, man. Don't try to tell me who I can and can't be. And you go, whoa, okay. And then you tell your friends, all I did was say that I wanted to spend more time together, and he just is doing it. Like, you know what he was doing? Being a white blood cell. Now, granted, he could work on his communication skills, but in his defense, he's been living inside a femur. Not a lot of role modeling going on inside the femur, except for white blood cell production. So, it is that, what is my job? What is my business? What is your business? What is God's business? And then crafting the experience that you want to have in the world. Look for my upcoming children book. What did Billy Bone Marrow say? No, sorry. What's a metaphor? Anyway, if it's not, we got a little distracted today, but thank you for being a part of the community of cells that works to increase our vibration, increase the health of the body. There's no one part of the body that can, take it upon themselves to fix the body. Health is from everybody, everything being their optimum self. And someone's optimum self may, to you, seem like a problem. That's why when someone was asking me for advice, what should I, how can I help? How can I show this person that what they're doing is blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, that's a big step in my mind to ever have the impression that, you know what you should do? My brother used to joke that the way that his pamphlet on how to win friends and be popular was start every sentence with, you know what your problem is? People love that! And I think that what you need to do, as I say that, you know what you need to do? What one needs to do is to instead, as we said, practice getting in touch with what you are, with what you resonate with what your truth is, not with what your story is and what people have told you, but what is your truth? What when other people do something, what lights you up and go, wow, thank you for doing that. And then you go, do I want to be doing that? I think I should be doing that. Yeah. And when you look at, and then when you do something going, why did I do that? Was there this deep voice of my dad saying, only losers don't do X, Y, and Z? And you go, yeah. Or some feeling of whatever. And as you strip away and figure out who that is, what that core song of who you are is, you start to realize what you should be doing and how you should be acting. That whole follow your bliss, that so many. Abraham says that joy is your only compass. Bashar says that joy is an actual magnet, so whatever is making you excited, go in that direction. The power of myth, is this follow your bliss. All of that that's what is available when you start to strip away all of the external societal voices, that you start to, your cell has a purpose. But we can't come to it from that place. When you're looking for a purpose, you have an idea of what you think purpose is. And that definition is based on what our culture has taught us. So we think, what's my purpose means, how do I make my imprint on the world? How do I build a bridge? How do I save the poor? How do I build a huge building? How do I do a huge company? How do I make my mark? What is my purpose? You go, no, that's your old brain. That's the human mind that's tricking you. That's the cancer thought. How can I make my mark? Right? What's a cancer cell do? It goes to the cells around it and go, I know what you should be doing, instead of surrendering. Every cell sinks into their purpose. That can be a very quiet place. The most inspiring, amazing, I would say, the people who get life the most, you will never hear about. Because they don't quest for fame. They don't try to make an impact on the world. They find a place of harmony with themselves, with their environment, with their families. And they are at peace with their purpose. Whatever that is. Maybe it's farming, maybe it's building things, maybe it's teaching, maybe it's carpentry, maybe it's... Now, the challenge is there's so many parts of the modern society where it's hard to tell if we're out of balance just in huge ways, but I think that you start to feel it yourself. Like, you can be in balance while working in an out-of-balance industry, for example. You can be an agent of love working for Halliburton. Are they still? Whatever. Blackwater. And more I talk to people who are becoming aware of that. Like, oh, I do this as a vocation, but what I do is I figure out my purpose, which is as an agent of love, as a creature of compassion, as a divine representative of the One. And that looks like a kind, compassionate, listening, present person. It doesn't necessarily look like the person who gets the headlines. Says the guy with pink hair. Which is why this is Belief Buffet, and spit it out if this doesn't resonate. Wow, 2 o'clock already. I guess that's what happens when you have massive technical problems. So I'm going to just talk for a little bit longer. If you have to go, I totally get it and I understand. I love that people are picking the kind of cells they want to be. Of course, you understand that by picking the cell, you're falling back into your minds and choosing what you think would be a cool role. There's I think it's a Zen story about all these cells in the body, the hands and the mouth and the eyes start talking. They go, you know what? We go out, we catch food, we cook food, we prepare it, we chew it up, and the stomach just sits there and just digests it all. Screw that. This is totally unfair. I'm not going to do all this work just so the stomach can just, I'm on strike. Me too, me too, me too. And what happens? The body dies. Everybody's got to do their thing, no matter how somebody's... And a cool lesson of that dribbled out of Burning Man as I was watching our camp. Because it's not just our camp, the whole event, people fall into roles that, to me, I would say I would never want to do that. Like, I look at people who take on the ranger role, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what a sacrifice that is. And the people I know that ranger are like, are you kidding me? It's such a cool opportunity to play this role of protector, of, being an agent or a servant to this ideal of yours. And it's something that is not an opportunity in the day-to-day world. And so it is this treasured experience. I'm like, oh, okay, so just because I don't want to be a marrow cell doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't want to be a marrow cell? Oh. And in our camp, there are times when people, part of it is you might like to do it, and part of it is you just might love the body so much that you go, somebody has to do it? Oh, if the body needs it, I'll do it. So if somebody needs to get ice, I'll do it. Is it fun to go wait in line for ice? No. But if you love the body, and you know it needs ice, then you want to get it. Joyfully. It's not a sacrifice. So the last thing I wanted to touch on was, maybe not the last, I don't know. I've had a head injury. Did I not mention that? No, sorry. Not, somebody wrote and asked, they shared some personal information about their family and about their child who is struggling with all sorts of mental illness. And at the end of all their explanation of what was going on, they apologized for getting stuck up in their story. And I was like, well, I mean, and I there's, to me, this process of trying to share this information wasn't a, hey, come look at my, and smell my shit. It was, I've been struggling with this stick and this sponge for a while, trying to figure out how to get this off my shoe. It's really affecting our ability to have ice cream. Can I show it to you and see if you have any ideas of how we can deal with this crap? And the truth is, some crap is way more invasive than others. There is crap that is a story that you can let go and it is not a part of your life until it is. And there's crap that is a part of your life all the time. If you have chronic pain, it's really hard to just say, ignore it! That's crap, enjoy the cone. Well, as I'm eating my cone, if I have blinding pain, it's a part of the cone. And if you're in a relationship, or if you are married, if you have children, these are connections that are not easily dismissed for the sake of you enjoying your ice cream cone. I'll be honest, I don't really have an awesome answer to this. The only thing that I would do is do some Byron Katie work and try to figure out if there are thoughts around this that are making it even harder. Is it a hard situation that you've got someone who there are no more resources that you can give that is that's hard. But there's a lot of things that are hard that you have to deal with what is and then work on making the story so it's not so terrible or not so painful. If you lose your legs, you got to start to figuring out how do you get around without legs. You also have to practice and figure out how do you stop being resentful and frustrated that you can't walk anymore. So I think that's part of the process is just minimizing the suffering while you deal with the inevitable pain. Understanding the difference there, pain and suffering. Pain is cutting myself. Suffering is thinking, oh my gosh, now I'm not going to be able to don't know what. Is this, are we after 2 o'clock? Now I can't, finger this girl without wearing a rubber glove. Sorry, I'm gonna use my Vertigo excuse. Anyway, there are hard things in the world, and the other thing that I would just is to acknowledge that the now of that experience may have all sorts of things infused in it. There's also the story of the things that you can't do, that you get frustrated about, and also the things that the impact that it has on other people, and maybe the guilt that you feel about that, and trying to work on those stories and those beliefs so that you can minimize it as best as possible and acknowledge that that just is the way it is. And then, doing a little bit of visualization and belief and trying to imagine some futures where things are better. Trying to craft a scenario where miracles can happen, and then expect them. Easier said than done, right? That's why we practice. Everyday practice. Getting present, having integrity, aligned with love, and always resetting that gratitude, always resetting that baseline so that you can appreciate light. Look at that. It reflects off everything in different ways, so many colors. And I have eyes that can receive that. And that's just one of my senses. Whoa! Don't get me started on my skin cells. Because I might talk about that rubber glove again, and that would be inappropriate. Okay, it's very late. And I'm sure people have to get back to work. Not me personally. I'm, unemployed now, which is one reason why we're going to have no happy hour tonight. I'm going to be taking a break and having a cookie day / connection with Dimitri, as we have an opportunity to spend some time together before he takes on a new adventure in another city. But since we have a few more minutes here, or seconds I will say, let me just say thank you for being in this moment, for even having the door cracked to possibility, to your better self, to your more loving self. And as you practice that, it not only brings you joy, it spreads in the entire world. I don't even have to know where you are to know that you make my life better. You make the world better just by being you. So I thank you. I appreciate it. And I love you.